financial consult with some people not too long ago. Very, very well-heeled, very hardworking, very well-educated. They made over $1 million a year between the two of them. And yet they were talking to me about their credit cards being maxed. Hey, how we doing, Matt?
Good, Zane. How are you?
Very blessed. Just happy to be here. And wanted to share today and talk about, I don't know how else to say it. We call it expanding life with expanding income. And the term that I've read is lifestyle creep. So to give an example or to kind of illustrate this, let's start out with, I don't know, let's say $40,000 a year income. And we live on $40,000 a year. And then things happen. We develop more skills. We get a raise. We start making more money, and we start making $60,000 a year. And somehow that $40,000 to $60,000 jump, that's a 50% jump. But we don't start saving 50% more money. We don't keep living on $40,000. We move up and somehow find ways to spend the newfound income, the $60,000. And this goes on throughout life to the point that I actually had a financial consult with some people not too long ago. Very, very well-heeled, very hardworking, very well-educated. They made over $1 million a year between the two of them. And yet they were talking to me about their credit cards being maxed. They were talking to me about how they were going to make their payments on their cars. They were worried about having their house possibly repossessed. And these are people that were making over $1 million a year. And so when we talked about what happened here, how you two have been together since you were in college. You lived on next to nothing. How in the world can you now be having trouble with $1 million a year income, where most people would look at $1 million a year and say, that's like winning the lottery. But their lifestyle had just kept on creeping. And they said, well, we've got 2 leased cars and, the payment on this and the payment on this. And we've got a house this much, and we've got a swimming pool, and what they slowly came to realize was they had allowed their lifestyle to keep expanding with their income, meeting their income. And what we had to stop and look at was getting back to the very basics. How do we make financial decisions? And when you're, 10 years old, what do you do?
Oh, do I have the money in my pocket?
Bingo. Do I have the money? Well, if we don't have what we talked about last week, the financial plan and some financial guidelines, we keep making decisions based on, what'd you just say?
Do I have the money in my pocket?
Do I have the money? So we make the decisions based on whether we have the money or not. And unfortunately, in today's world, it's not, do we have the money all the time? What is it? Do we have the credit? Can we qualify for it?
So we never had the money. Now we never had the money. The question is, can we borrow the money?
Yeah. Can we get the money somewhere to make this purchase? Because somehow our lives have moved forward, or we've allowed our lives to, if you will, move up and think that it's necessary to keep up that spending just because, again, we have more income. So the car that used to be fine with us now just doesn't meet our needs because there's a newer model, or there's a more luxurious model, or there's a more powerful car. There's something special about the car that makes us realize or kind of feel like the car I have now just doesn't cut it. And that happens with so much in our lives. When we start making more money, we start wearing nicer clothes because naturally we make this much money, we should dress better.
Right.
Doesn't that kind of make sense?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to dress the parts.
Yeah. You gotta fill out the image.
Yeah.
So we go to nicer restaurants. Oh, well, the place we've always gone, that was back when I was only making, So we keep creeping up and keep finding ways to spend this newfound money. And not that we haven't earned it, and not that we don't have the right to spend it, but as we let lifestyle creep, it also takes away some of that. Well, it complicates our life. Let's put it that way.
Very much so. If I may interject one thing, there was a roach coach that my wife and I used to go to. That was like on the side. It was in Oakland.
No, wait a minute. Let's not put down roach coaches.
Listen,
it might have been some of the best.
That's my point. We went to this thing because it was so good. And it was like, if we could find a reason and the courage to go to, because it was not in a great area of Oakland, and it was on the side of a restaurant, and it was essentially their takeout thing. So you'd go and they'd give you this little sandwich bag of like pickled radishes and carrots, and the carnitas they had, man, I don't know what they did to those burritos. I don't know what they did to that meat. It was so good. And my wife and I could now, I guarantee you, we could go get a really expensive, we could go get $100 steak somewhere. And if you asked us, what would be better?
Was that better?
What would be better? Would you want the roach coach and, standing in the parking lot, eating these burritos with a little radish grease on your hands? Or do you want this $100 steak? I guarantee, I've never asked her, but I guarantee both of us be like, oh, give me the burrito.
Yeah, this is living.
This is, oh my gosh.
So we get into this almost like without a subconscious, if you will, just this, somehow we have to keep moving forward rather than saying, wait a minute, I had a really good life, or I have a really good life at this level. There's more money coming in. I don't need the latest and the greatest car. I have a really good car. I don't need a bigger house, because I get this quite often. I live in a 2,600-foot house. That's including my basement. And I get friends who try to tell me, you should build yourself, and I'd say, no, this is fine. But if we can stop and limit ourselves, because number one, it allows us investment capital, but two, it keeps our lives simple. And I ask clients all the time, I ask people, if I'm working with them on finances or investments, I'll ask them, when was the happiest time in your life? In 40 years, no one has ever said, when I spent the most money, when I had the fanciest car, when I had the biggest house. No one has ever answered it. They always go back and say, just like you did,
the roach coach.
Remember when we first got married? Remember when life was simpler? Remember when we didn't worry about all the bills coming in? And that's when we start with building a financial plan of, okay, we can't go back. It's hard to go back after we've expanded. But what can we keep from going forward and keep this lifestyle creep from happening? Because very seldom is it, I've got this great big house and I've got this mortgage and I've got to fill it with furniture and I've got the gardener now that I have to deal with, and the landscape isn't quite right, and all these different things that complicate our lives and take us away from maybe building our investments, maybe building ourselves, maybe doing recreational activities, maybe spending more time with our kids. And when we keep things on a more simple, if you will, just a less complicated life, we don't allow that lifestyle creep to come in. And hopefully we have listeners that are going, yeah, I can relate. I can go back to when life was really simple. And I knew the bills were coming in and I knew they were easily paid, and we had some extra and we didn't worry about things, and we didn't have all these other issues. You were telling me about people building a house and, all the energy it takes. And rather than having that energy spent on this new house and this bigger house, and I'm sure they lived in a pretty nice house to start with, why go through all that? And we don't have to pick on, a big house in real estate. We can pick on whatever, but just not creeping up. We don't need to go on longer and more extravagant vacations. We can, we can go on weekends, or we can go on a week, or whatever. There's a million examples of this, but not letting this creep go to where, like my couple that were sitting in front of me, and I mean, I hope I'm sure they did. I'm not a very good actor. They saw my amazement when they said, yeah, we make over $1 million a year and we're having trouble. He even told me, he said, if we finish this and go to lunch, you're going to need to buy lunch. And, you know, if you haven't experienced this,
oh my gosh,
you're going to have trouble, you know, relating and saying, oh, come on, really? Well, if we don't stop, if we start, 50,000 was a lot. 75,000. If I can just get to 100. If I can just get, and then pretty soon you go, gosh, I have a life that I can't really imagine. I have cars in the garage that I can't imagine. I wear clothes that I can't imagine. But I also have all these complications. I also have all these extra things that I have to worry about, rather than, you know, the old KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid.
Right.
Let's stay within our means. Let's set a financial budget or financial plans. And I can hear it right now. And you won't do it because you've invested very well, Matt. But people saying, oh, Dr. Zane, you're going to take all the fun out of life. Okay. And again, I ask people, when did you have the most enjoyment? When did you have the most fun? And it's not when they've built the gigantic house. It's not when they drive the newest and the latest. It's not when they become members of the most exclusive country club in town. It's not when they take, these extravagant vacations. Right. They go, you know, I'd like to be around my really good friends. I'd like to spend more time with my kids. I'd like to put together, investments, or maybe start giving back, maybe a foundation, maybe these different things. And it all comes from holding the line, if you will, having a financial plan and not allowing life to creep.
Yeah. And one principle that my wife and I really were worried about when we were younger, when we had nothing, by the way, and we were worried about, as we made the assumption that we were going to be successful in our pursuits. And we said, look, no matter what we have to worry about, a mentor of mine said, hey, look, you never worry about the one-time expense, right? You worry about the repetitive nature of the one-time expense.
Absolutely.
Take a car, right? It's like, you want to get an expensive car. Okay, well, not all expensive cars are created equally. Let's say you want to buy a $50,000 car. Is it going to be a $50,000 car that requires $1,000 on average maintenance per month? Or is it going to be a $50,000 car that maybe requires only $200? And it's like, well, those two cars are not created equally. And yeah, maybe we say, hey, the $50,000 car isn't the best idea, but if you're going to make these types of purchases, at least consider what's the tangential cost that comes along with them. Things of that nature.
Great point. I'll go along with your $50,000 car. How much is the insurance going to be?
Right.
But not just that. When we talk about the bigger house, they say, well, we're really going to have to stretch, but we're going to get this. Okay, what are your closing costs? You've got about 10%. So whatever you pay for a house, you add 10% to it. Okay, then are you done paying? Because we've got property taxes.
Right.
We've got upkeep. We've got to fill that house with, we've got 5 bedrooms now instead of 3. Well, what are we going to do? We're going to have 2 guest bedrooms, or we're going to have a sewing room, or we're going to have, whatever.
The utilities are more because you have to heat or cool. The landscaper is more because you probably got some guy coming to do the landscaping. If you have a cleaning lady, she's going to have to clean twice as much. All of the expenses start
ongoing,
right.
ongoing. And we don't stop and look at that. We just say, can we buy the house? Yeah. Can we buy the car? Well, that expensive car takes more expensive tires, takes more expensive insurance. So our lifestyle just keeps going. And it almost, we talk about the tail wagging the dog, or does the dog wag the tail? Pretty soon, you've got your life kind of getting away from you, because you go, I didn't really plan on the house costing this much. I didn't really plan on the car costing this much. Oh, I want my kids to be well educated. Oh, I didn't plan on the school's costing that much. Oh, wait a minute. I got to send them to school because it's a nice school, they're going to have to live in a nice area. So as we go, all these things cost more than we really anticipated. And if we don't have a plan going forward, if we haven't put together some boundaries and some parameters, if you will, kind of some guidelines, then we're going to get into this. And like I say, I see couples and individuals all the time who say, I am more successful than ever, and yet I'm more stressed than ever. I'm more worried about, finances. I don't have as much money in the bank as I did when I made way more money or way less money.
Right. And the anxiety, when you mentioned stress, the anxiety I always imagined was, okay, look, if we make more money and our obligations, our financial obligations and liabilities increase proportionally, that's going to make my reliance on making that more money that much more real, right? If I go from making $100,000 to $200,000, my lifestyle joins and goes from $100,000 lifestyle to 200. If I make $150 one year, that's going to be a huge problem.
You're in trouble.
But if I'm making good money, $100,000, and I have the good grace to make it up to $200,000, but my lifestyle stays the same, then not only do I get to do whatever I want with that extra money, like investing it, but if I go down to 150, I'm still way ahead because my lifestyle stayed at the $100,000 mark.
Yeah. And one more thing to add, and that is, who else are we allowing to be involved in our lifestyle creep? And our kids follow us. And if they watch our lives going up, it's just natural. They're not bad people. What do they expect? They expect nicer things in their life as well. And again, this is where that creep comes in. When we get into a nicer home, a nicer neighborhood, more expensive vacations, the kids are going to come right along with it. I had one the other day that, oh my Lord, the little boy was 9 years old, and he had just gotten his fourth pair of these special tennis shoes that he, 9 years old, really wanted. That's what his mom told him, really wanted. And I thought, where'd that come from? 9-year-olds don't know that they need, these really expensive tennis shoes. It came from their lifestyle, and it came from the way the parents dressed and the places the parents went, and this change that had come over them as they were more successful.
Right.
But when I talked with them about that, they felt that they really wanted to give their 9-year-old this fourth pair of shoes, but it gave them anxiety, it gave them concern, it gave them worry that they were like, how do we get over this? And that's what we really worked out when we got into our group and our gathering. We sat and talked about it, and we had other parents come forward and say, this is how we handled it, this is what we did, this is how a financial plan helped us. And so this understanding that we're not in it alone, that this is a relatively, unfortunately, natural progression. As we make more money, we allow things to go, and we don't always understand what's going to come with it in terms of expense, like the car,
right?
Like the house, like the vacations where, we're on this nice vacation. Well, there's a really nice dinner at one of the places we can go. So anyway, lifestyle creep, and we can work on minimizing it, and the stress it keeps out of our lives, the frustration, the anxiety, and then the happiness of going forward and being able to have, what would it be like to, if we're used to living on $50,000 and then we get a raise or our business does better, whatever, we get up to $100,000. If we still kept living closer to that $50,000 mark, what could we do with that extra money? What investments could we make? What we could start that generational wealth, that generational legacy that we want, and keep our lifestyle a little closer to where we came from rather than kind of the next level up.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And just let it go in terms of let the finances go. My Lord, how are we blessed to keep making more money, but not enlarging our footprint, if you will, our life.
Yeah.
Love having you, Matt.
Appreciate you.